listening to this week's episode of Pre-Brawl, your prep show for the Tavern Brawl in Hearthstone, part of the Hearth Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Pre-Brawl for the 10th Tavern Brawl. This is episode 10 of Pre-Brawl. My name is Christopher Puner, and with me, I've got this week an Aidan Frost Rock Arts.
Hey, that's me.
What's up, dude?
Not much, playing some Tavern Brawl, doing the dupe, having fun.
Cool. And as we predicted last week, this week's Tavern Brawl is it's pretty baller. It's pretty cool. It has to do with the upcoming expansion, which they release is now going to be available on the 24th of this month. Today being the 19th, day of recording, by the way. For the Grand Tournament stuff. And this week's Tavern Brawl is called the Grand Tournament Match. It's two pre-made decks, one that's focusing on one mechanic that's introduced in this new set, and the other one focusing on another mechanic that is introduced in this set, those two mechanics being Inspire and Joust. The two decks are Medivh versus Alleria, so you get to see him play and handle those hero skins if you haven't had a chance to yet because you don't want to spend the money. Now you get to see what it feels like to play like those guys in those decks. So it's a mage and a hunter deck. Medivh, the mage deck, being more focused on the Inspire mechanic, and Alleria, the hunter deck, that one being focused on the Joust mechanic. And we've got the deck lists here that we're going to talk about each of the decks, how to use them, our opinions on this week's Tavern Brawl, and getting our hands on these new Grand Tournament cards for the first time, really. So, Aidan.
Yeah.
First impressions from this Tavern Brawl, what do you think?
I think that Medivh, the mage deck, is it's just better constructed, I think, than the hunter deck. The hunter deck kind of has, they obviously want to show off the joust mechanic because it's a new mechanic. And they also seem like they're trying to make a deck based around Lock and Load, the new hunter spell, which is a 2-mana spell. You cast it, then every other spell you play gives you a random hunter card. You just get a random hunter card in your hand. So, I mean, they're kind of trying to make two different types of decks, which is kind of weird. And because of it, they really don't have an early game. They have a lot of late game cards for, obviously to proc the Joust mechanic, and they have a lot of spells to proc Lock and Load, but that kind of leaves them without an early game, which, I mean, it just seems like they're trying to show off too many things for the hunter deck. It's still a lot of fun, but I think the mage deck's just a little bit better. It's just a little better, a little bit more well constructed. Yeah,
it seems to have a more cohesive theme behind it. Yeah, I would agree. The only two games I've played so far have been as Medivh, and I've lost both of them, though, to hunters. That being said, I am, of course, admittedly not the best at this game. We've talked about this. If you've seen me draft an arena, you know I'm terrible at it. But I understand the mechanics they're trying to go for with these deck lists and stuff like that. But before we get into the mage, which is the one that I know more about, let's talk about the hunter deck a little bit. Let's do that. So there's 21 hunter cards in this, and there's 9 neutral cards, and every single card in each of these decks, by the way, is a Grand Tournament card. It's not like there's a couple plus. Oh wait, no, there's a couple of things like Unleash the Hounds and Cobra Shot, but the majority.
I was gonna say,
yeah. No, go ahead.
The breakdown for TGT cards is a little bit weird too, because for the hunter deck, there is 14 cards that are from the other sets and 16 TGT cards. And for the mage deck, there is 29 TGT cards in it. So yeah. I think it's kind of Blizzard being the only card that's not from TGT in the mage deck. But I mean, it's kind of weird that one of them has obviously 16 TGT cards, and then obviously the hunter deck has 14 non-TGT because they need to proc Lock and Load. They wanted to make a Lock and Load deck, so you need those really cheap spells like Hunter's Mark, the trackings, Arcane Shot, stuff like that. But it's weird that the mage deck has 29 TGT cards.
Yeah, I mean, and it makes a lot more sense thematically with the mage deck that would be what they were going for, because they're building it around basically what the new mage build that they're trying to encourage is with this deck from the set too. Yeah. Whereas in the hunter one, it's just kind of complementary sort of cards to stuff that you were already doing with that class. So I mean, a lot of the joust mechanic stuff, all the really important interesting cards in the hunter deck are all TGT, but there are some things that just add meat to the deck that you're familiar with, like Unleash the Hounds, Cobra Shot, shit like that. Tracking, Arcane Shot, Hunter's Mark, how could you not have those, really? Snipe. There's one snipe. Anyway, yeah, so let's talk about what's in this deck. In the hunter cards, the 21 that are hunter cards, you've got 2 hunter's marks, 2 arcane shots, 2 trackings, 1 bear trap. That's a new one, right?
Sure is.
Okay. What does bear trap do? I'm not familiar.
It's a new hunter secret. When your hero takes damage, you summon a 3/3 bear with taunt.
Oh, baller. Okay. Freezing trap, which you guys should be familiar with. King's Elec. 2 of them. King's Elec is has a joust mechanic, right? It is you draw a card from your deck, and your opponent draws a card from the deck, and if your card costs more, you then draw that card with this when you play this card. I believe it's a 3 mana.
2 mana, 3/2.
2 mana, 3/2. There we go. 2 lock and loads, which you've already talked about before. 1 snipe, 2 animal companions, which you should be familiar with. 2 unleash the hounds, you should also be familiar with that. Cobra shot, 1 of them. A ram wrangler, 1 of them. A tundra rhino, 1 of them, and 1 acid maw. We're not going to go into, by the way, into depth on every single one of these cards because we did just put up as of yesterday a video breakdown of all 132 of the grand tournament cards, and we talk about each of them in depth. And by we, I of course mean Frost here in Hillman because I wasn't there. But that video is up on our YouTube channel. We'll tell you where you can go take a look at that at the end of this pre-brawl. But yeah, just a mental note. We're not going to stop and address every single new card because we already did that once technically. So there's those, and then there's 9 neutral cards in the Hunter deck as well. There's 2 Armored War Horses, which also has a joust mechanic. 1 Refreshment Vendor, which is frustrating to play against. It heals you and your opponent when you play. It's like a 3/5, I think. It restores 4 health to each person. 2 Master Jousters, 1 Skeleton Knight, that's a legendary. 2 Captured Jormungars, and then 1 North Sea Kraken, which, remember how we were talking about how we weren't sure how that card was going to be played or get value out of it when we first talked about it? Fucking shit, if it didn't get value against me today and take my only taunt off the board, I was so mad. I was like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't just slap me across the face with a North Sea Kraken. I'm so upset. But yeah, that's pretty much that deck. What you want to be doing with this deck is really just trying to proc Joust as much as possible. And with this deck, there's a lot of really high cost cards, as Aidan was saying, so it happens more often than not. But basically, you're trying to put yourself into a position where you can get like a lot of damage on the board by playing a couple of these Joust cards in a row or together or stuff like that. You're a little bit more reliant on RNG than strategy, whereas the Mage deck is more about strategy and control. But the Hunter deck is about getting a lot of face value out of these cards by proccing this Joust. And if you don't, there's still pretty big bodies on the board. So there's really no way to lose by making plays. It's just see where your pace goes. If it gets sped up by the Joust or not. It's flip a coin sort of thing. But yeah, that's the Alleria deck. Let's move on to the Medivh deck, Frost.
Yeah, so I'll go through these. So the Mage cards are, you have 2 Fallen Heroes, 2 Polymorph Boars, 2 Spell Slingers, 2 Flame Lances, a Blizzard, two Koldara Drakes, 1 Ronin, the Mage Legendary, the new one. For neutral cards, you have 2 Lowly Squires. You have 1 tournament attendee, 2 Bone Guard Lieutenants, 2 Garrison Commanders, 1 Argent Horse Rider, 1 Dragon Hawk Rider, 2 Evil Hecklers, 2 Maiden of the Lakes, 1, I hate how to pronounce this, me and Matt like laughing at how to pronounce it. 1 Kvaldir Raider, 1 Nexus Champion Sarad, which is a is it a legendary? I believe it is.
Yes, it is. Yeah, he's a Space Mummy legendary.
Yeah, 1 Coda Rider and 2 Frost Giants. So I mean, once again, like breaking down how you play this deck, you have a lot of early game cards. A lot of them are based off the Inspire mechanic. So I mean, if you can maintain your Fallen Heroes on the board, your Caldera Drakes, your Maiden of the Lakes, all of those together. Like the first game, I texted Chris. I'm like, oh lol, this was a lot of fun because my first game I had a Fallen Hero on the board, so that made my hero power do 2 damage. I had a Maiden of the Lake, which made my hero power cost 1. And I had a Caldara Drake, which made me be able to hero power as many times as possible. And on turn 8, I was able to do 16 damage with 8 mana just by using my hero power to their face. And I'm like, that was fun.
Yeah.
So really, you have to kind of maintain your board and then really just abuse your Inspire mechanics if you can get them all lined up. Because like by themselves, Fallen Hero, not that powerful, Maiden of the Lake not that powerful, Caldera Drake not that powerful, but together they are just really, really strong cards when you play them all together.
Caldera Drake isn't so bad on its own. It's a 6/6 for 6, isn't it?
Yeah, but you never... I don't know when you're going to want to use your 2-mana hero power as many times as possible, unless you have also Fallen Hero and or Maiden of the Lake.
Yeah, I don't really think that you're running any of them, any of those on their own, but probably just in tandem with each other. But I've been finding that Fallen Hero, when I was playing those, draws a lot of removal. Like, a lot of people are just trying to face and get that off the board as quickly as possible. Because it's a 3, too, so it's pretty susceptible to getting traded out, you know. But a lot of people stress that because they know that that's like that's the entry towards you just having complete and utter control of the match because of your hero power, you know.
Well, I mean, me and Matt talked a lot about how Fallen Hero, it's one of the best 2-drops in the game, in our opinion at least, because if you can coin that out turn 1, they play their 2-mana creature turn 2, and then your hero power can probably trade with it, which is like normally your hero power can only take out minions with 1 health, but on turn 2, if you can take out a minion with 2 health with your hero power, that's so good. So I mean, like,
and
you
you've
can't
got
clear
3 damage on the board still, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's just overall a really, really good card. So if you can get it out like those early turns, you have a lot of removal just based off your hero power.
Absolutely. So what would you say the overall strategy is that you would recommend for somebody that they're trying to play this deck?
If they're trying to play the mage deck?
Yes.
Oh, you definitely have a lot more early game control compared to the hunter deck. So once again, you need to kind of make sure the hunter gets no control over the board, because they, once again, if they get control over the board with some of these hunter cards, like Ram Wrangler, if they have a beast on the board and they play Ram Wrangler, they get another beast, and that can lose you the game if they RNG a large enough beast off of it. So pretty well, you want to keep their board clear by using your removal spells like Flame Lance or Polymorph or stuff like that, or Blizzard. But once again, as soon as you get like your Fallen Heroes out on the board, your Caldera Drakes out of the board, you can win the game just based off hero power. So if you can, it will be a lot of fun for you. Try to use the Inspire mechanic to the best of your ability, because it's a lot of fun, and I actually think it's pretty good.
Yeah. So they made this deck pre-constructed to be played around the Inspire mechanic, but that doesn't seem to be the winning condition, is, you know, proccing your Inspire mechanic a whole bunch, from what you're telling me. So, I mean, they put in Lowly Squires, they also put in, what was it, the, not the Argent Horse Rider, the tournament attendee, one of the ones, maybe it's Bone Guard Lieutenant, one of the ones, he inspires, he gets 1 health. Do you find yourself not really relying on the Inspire mechanic as much, and just this whole kind of cheesy hero power thing instead?
I mean, like, the Inspire like, a lot of the cards really aren't very useful with Inspire mechanic. Like Lowly Squire, it's really not that great of a card. I mean, gaining 1 damage on it is great if you can play it turn 1, but if you can't play Lowly Squire turn 1, it's an absolutely terrible card. Bone Guard Lieutenant, I need to quickly check which one that was. So Bone Guard Lieutenant being the 2-mana 3/2 and Inspire gain 1 health. Once again, having a 2-mana 3/2, and then when you every time you hero power, you gain 1 health on it, really not great at all. I mean, like, if you hero power once, it's really just a 4-mana 3/3, and it's like not a very good card. Like, a lot of these cards are kind of cheesy in their own right. The only good hero power cards being Fallen Hero, Maiden of the Lake, and Caldera Drake. But I mean, I guess Frost Giant's not bad either. But yeah, a lot of them are just cheesy and kind of slow paced for what I really think the deck should be doing, which is having board control the entire game and just slowly just winning through better value cards.
I would agree as well. That's what I was like finding myself. All right, cool. So what cards were you most excited to play that were new? Because you've played both decks, right?
Yes, I have.
All right, so when you were like figuring it out and playing with these things, what cards did you like? What cards ended up playing differently than you expected, or worse? Like, how has touching the Grand Tournament cards now changed your viewpoint or perspective on this expansion, and especially the cards that you get to play with? Has it changed it at all?
There's a couple cards that I think are interesting. I mean, I thought King's Alec would be a way better hunter card, being a 2-mana 3/2. If you joust, you draw if you win the joust, you draw the card that you jousted with. But that card's kind of in a weird spot. I mean, even if you get to play it turn 2, you probably win the joust with like a 5-mana or higher card, and then you can't really play that card. So I mean, I'm kind of disappointed with that. It's not as strong as I thought it might be. I thought it would give you some crazy card draw. Another card that I really thought, like, really impressed me was Ram Wrangler. It's a 5 mana 3/3. If you have another beast on the field when you play it, you summon a random beast. Which, like, there's been one game where I got Captain's Parrot off of it, which I was kind of really upset by. But every other time, like, it is a super valuable card. Like, as long as you get a 2 mana or higher card, you're getting value off of it. Like, if you actually hit with the beast on your board. So, I mean, some of these hunter cards are super, super powerful. On the side of mage, though, I mean, the cards are interesting. None of them, like, have impressed me nearly as much as, like, some of the hunter cards. Like, I know Lock and Load in hunter, when I actually get to build a real deck around it, not like a half joust, half Lock and Load deck, I think it's going to be one of the best cards out of the whole set. But other than, like, even just looking at the legendaries that they showed us 4 legendaries in these sets to play with, being the Skeleton Knight, which I think is super underwhelming, Acid Maw, which I don't know why they didn't give us Dreadscale to go along with it, because we've mentioned multiple times on previous shows and in our card review that Acid Maw, you have to pretty well play it with Dreadscale for it to be a useful card.
Right.
So I'm not sure why they didn't put them together. Ronin, I haven't got to use yet, but, like, I think it's god tier. I've got Ronin a couple times with the triple arcane missiles, and it's lost me the game. But yeah, overall, I think that the legendaries are kind of underwhelming. I wish we got to see a couple more of the more interesting ones, Ronin being the only one that I've really enjoyed. It's kind of like, I don't think I've played it enough to, like, see all the mechanics together. Like, I've played like 8 games of it so far, but both decks just seem mad. Like, I'd rather make my own deck.
Right. Okay. For myself, having only really touched the mage deck, I also haven't gotten to use Ronin. But keeping the cards on the field for the hero power combo is a little bit more difficult than I had anticipated. Maybe it's because I'm playing against a hunter deck. But I'm really liking Polymorph Boar. It's a very interesting card where you have to decide whether or not you want to use it on some of your own cards or on somebody else's to, like, remove, like, a taunt and, like, a divine shield or some shit because they want to joust. Like, you can really fuck somebody up with it if you use it right. But I have a question for you. So if I have, let's say I have a fallen hero on the board, Frost, okay? And I'm able to attack with him this turn. If I swing with the fallen hero and then I polymorph him into a boar, can I then swing with the boar again?
You sure can. It has charge on it, I mean.
Okay. I wasn't sure about that. I mean, yeah, okay. I could see that turning around a game, possibly. That's interesting. The only other card that I Coda Rider was dumb. I don't like Coda Rider at all. But Frost Giant, having 2 of them in this deck is an interesting choice, I think. And I got a lot more use out of them than I was anticipating. I found myself just spamming my hero power when possible to just lower the cost on those guys. And I dropped, like, 2 and a Tournament Heckler as well. Evil Heckler as well in 1 turn for a 10 mana turn. 2 Frost Giants and a 5/4 with Taunt is sick. That was awesome.
It's also a nice surprise when you've been hero powering all game, then you forget about it, then you draw it and it costs like 3 mana and you're like, oh, that's cool.
Great, yeah. Exactly, yeah. It's really neat. I don't think I've ever really played another Giant before while playing this game because I don't play with them in my deck because I usually run cheesy combo decks. But yeah, no, playing some Frost Giants and big bodies it's a really cool thing to have, especially like in a mage deck. There wasn't a lot of that to begin with, so it's cool to have that there now. So yeah. What else do you want to talk about with these decks? I can't really think of anything else. We talked about what's in them and how to play them, so I don't really know what else to do.
I guess I didn't talk much about, like, the hunter, what I think could be improved in it. Okay. If you look at the hunter deck, the only low drop in the hunter deck is King's Elic, which draws you a high drop if it hits. So, I mean, the only way that you can really play the hunter deck, which I think is kind of one-dimensional, is you have to use your spells, your massive number of spells, like a ton of secrets, which are kind of useless. Like, Snipe's not that good, Bear Trap's not that good. You kind of have to use it as early game removal until you can start playing stuff like your Jouster, which I think is crazy if you hit value on the Joust, stuff like that. North Sea Kraken usually clears a minion. Captain Jorbungar is a great body to start clearing their minions off of. Like, it's weird. This game, like, the deck is kind of counterintuitive almost in the fact that you have no early game cards. You have to wait till late game, but they also want you to. They've obviously somewhat built the deck around lock and load, and the only way you're going to hit a big lock and load is if you make it to, like, turn 10. and you haven't used these early low cost removals. So I mean, so if you want to win with Hunter, you use your removal early game. Forget about lock and load. You're probably not going to get value off of it, and then hope that you draw the big enough cards to win you some good joust and stuff like that. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I wish I got to build my own Hunter deck, but I'm sure I'll enjoy it when that actually comes out. I think it's a good way to show people the mechanics of joust and inspire.
Yeah. In just 5 days, man. 5 days to be able to build your own. It'll be great. Cool. Well, I can't really think of anything else to talk about other than encourage you guys to go out and play this what you can. This is a good way to figure out, if you haven't decided how you feel about this expansion, to really get your hands on it, get some experience, and like figure it out and see if you like it or not. And also with these the mage and the hunter alternate skins, they're cool. They're pretty. It's nice to play with them once. It's kind of like a demo to a degree.
Good marketing.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to buy them, but I'm enjoying playing with them on the Tavern Brawl release. So I just want to remind you guys again that you can go take a look at our the Grand Tournament card review. We cover every single card and talk about them in detail. So if you were a little lost with this and you want to go see what they're about and what our opinions are, go take a look at that video. It's going to be on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for The Hearth Podcast, and you'll see it there. For you. We'll also pump it to our social feeds. So speaking of social feeds, you can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Hearth Podcast, and then just search for The Hearth Podcast on Facebook as well. Subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, leave a review if you find it so appropriate to do so. And let's see, what else? I think that's it. Oh no, email us at thehearthshow@gmail.com and then leave us a voicemail at 681-443-2784 or 6814-HEARTH. And I think that's going to do it. Anything else you want to say?
I think that's about it.
All right, cool. We'll see you guys on Saturday and or Sunday for episode 11 of The Hearth. But until then, see you later. Bye-bye.
Ciao.